Hello YouTube, Robin Hood Bricks here, and welcome to another edition of Fairground Fridays, where I'm going to be doing another ride build that I've probably owned for the longest, but I've just been putting off because I think it's going to be pretty tricky. Okay, well before we get started on the new ride, I did just want to look at one that I did a previous time, which was my Escape from the Ice Queen ride, just to go through some of the small amendments that you helped contribute towards and give you some bedoings. So the first one was about adding a platform for the Ice Queen to stand on, because she was looking a bit sort of undecorated without anything. And it was a bit weird actually, because when I did the original plans for this on LDD, which is my digital design program of choice, I did actually have them, these are sort of icicles and so on, so I have actually added those back, but it was a good reminder that I'd forgotten them when I did that build. But somebody else also suggested that I add one of the small kind of flower gear things on the top as well, just to link the top with the bottom, and I really like that. So here's a bedoying for everyone who suggested one of those. Kind of half a bedoying, I suppose, just because it's quite small, was to people who suggested the Ice Queen sort of jet should be pointing down at the ride users. So I think that's quite a good improvement, because I kind of had them up here. But yeah, I'll give you a bedoying. And then one that I got on with straight after filming, really, but was also pointed out with by a lot of you, was just to bring out all these steps slightly further. I think they're in a better place. That's just over there because it will go next to that when it's in position, but you know, I think it's still in the right place, and that doesn't catch at all when the thing goes around, so that is looking good, and a bit more perilous with these jets as well, so very good. So a bedoying for everyone who suggested moving the steps. Right, so that's that one done. On to today's then. So what this ride is the 31084 Pirate Roller Coaster, which I bought way back when it was released in 2018. And you can see that, well, it's kind of had a bit of an accident since then, in that basically all of the parts, when I sort of put it into storage, kind of, well, fell apart, and there's a bag full of bits here as well. And, well, it didn't survive, suffice to say. So I'm going to have to try and piece all this together to start with, because one thing I'm going to be doing to this is motorizing it. And I did actually do that last time as well. You can see I've got some chain pieces here just to run through the track to power the thing around. But it does pose a lot of problems, because I did get it working back then, back in 2018, way before I started the channel. But I did have a lot of problems with keeping it reliable. And if I'm going to want to run this for sort of 5 minutes at a trot, then I don't want to have breakdowns. Well, I don't even want to have breakdowns after 5 minutes either, really. So I'm going to have to try and put more effort into making it really, really super reliable, which might mean compromising in some other areas. But anyway, I think the first thing to do with this is to build kind of the original model, not worry about the motorization first, because obviously it's in a bit of a state. So I'll get on with that. Well, all right, there it all is, pieced back together for the first time since 2018, and it's looking pretty good. I'm on shaky hands cam just because it's really hard to fit in shots all in one go. And it wasn't that hard to put back together, actually. A lot of the pieces were in large sections, and it was just a matter of ordering those around the track pieces and all the rest of it. And then you had to really refer to the instructions for some of the more finer details, just to see where they went, where they'd sort of fallen off one of the other bits. And this is my favourite section of it, these sort of pirates themed fortress element that looks a bit like the El Dorado fortress, which is one of my all-time favourite sets, and that actually is in my harbour area, amended as usual. And it's really nice that the Travelling Fairground have brought this sort of reproduction of that real-life tourist attraction and made it part of their ride, so that's really nice. And then continuing around, I have got a motorised mechanism, but we are going to be changing that because it isn't entirely brilliant. Going up to the top of the hill, where we've got the sort of skull gate, and then past the octopus, which has only got 3 legs left, poor chap, to the kind of wrecked galleon, I suppose you'd call it, which has got its crow's nest and is in bits all around there. And then we've got the roller coaster itself, cars, going through the sort of water dunk bit to complete a lap. So that is the set as it originally started out. Now, I say this set started out like this, but when it came from Lego, it didn't have any mechanism in it whatsoever, so I wasn't being completely correct there. The battery box, medium motor, and all this sort of chain mechanism with bits here, here, and here to hold it all in place were additions later on done by me in 2018 by following a YouTube video by somebody called Yoshimi Miyu, who I think was the first one to put a video up on how to basically motorize this set. So I used that as inspiration and basically tweaked it a little bit using the pieces that I had and to make it work for me. And now it does work, but not flawlessly. And that's the problem, I think. This set has got a myriad of problems to overcome if you want to motorize it. To get this running reliably, there are 3 problems that we need to overcome. The first is this incredibly flat section of track after the main incline, and that basically is plenty of space for this to come to a grinding halt before it gets all the momentum from going down the main down slope. So we can encourage it to get around this corner by basically changing this column here, by adding even just one plate to make it a slight decline all the way around and help the carriage to get to the main drop. The second issue is the carriages themselves. Whether it's the original build or the slightly modified front from Yoshimi Miyu, basically the front car is very front heavy, and as a result, I don't know if it sort of is imbalanced or tips forward or something, but that definitely encourages it to sort of grind to a halt on this flat section. So that's not ideal either. So that's something we might want to modify more when we try and make it more reliable. And then the third one is this kind of flappy skull gate. Now, originally, this is a lot lower and basically smashes into the carriages on their way up the upslope. And that doesn't really matter when it's not motorized, but when it is motorized, it can cause all sorts of derailments. Maybe not very often, but even if it's sort of 1 in 50 loops, you know, that's going to happen every couple of minutes. And basically, I don't think it's very realistic anyway, because it basically smashes into the face of all 3 of the people when it goes through on the original build. So I do like it. But I've just raised it high enough so basically it doesn't affect any of the people or indeed any of its progress up the hill. So yeah, when we get it absolutely perfectly fine-tuned, we get the balance of this front section right, we get the incline of this corner right, and we get this out of the way, it doesn't mean it's definitely going to work. But for now, I'm just going to do it one go and see if it does work once at least. It's made it onto the lift and round, and there you see it's petered out. And just by kind of tilting something even by a little bit will change that. And then it didn't hit on the front of this chain as well on the bottom there. So you can see that this method, although, well, pretty good in a sense of it is actually going around, it's a lot better than pushing the whole thing around with your finger. It is not reliable enough for my Fairground. So basically, with all the sort of technic experience and all the experience I have over the last year or so of doing my Fairground rides, I'm going to have another go at doing this whole mechanism that was inspired by Yoshimi Miyu, and I'm going to make it a lot better for the future. So before I start messing with any of the mechanisms, I'm going to try and make my life a little bit easier. Although I quite like this sort of comedy open mouth, it doesn't really lend itself well to the guy in the front being able to see where he's going and enjoying the ride. And I also don't like the original build, which was very sort of pointy at the front and not very good either, in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is take off all of this stuff that I've modified a few years back, and I'm going to instead use a slightly different combination of pieces to give a similar effect, but basically a better one, I think, that's going to be more balanced weight-wise. And for the face on the front of this sort of creature, because if you haven't noticed, this thing has got a dorsal fin and a tail over here at the back, so it's supposed to be some sort of sea creature. I'm going to be using this piece, which has a pair of eyes on and some, well, sort of fishy type scale type detail on as well. And that's from the set 7771, Angler Ambush, from 2007, which is an Aqua Raiders set. and was part of, well, an anglerfish, as you might imagine. But I think if I just put that on there, then it's a relatively low profile version of this sort of oversized sort of comedic head, but still has kind of a open mouth with the red bit there and the eyes and all the rest of it. But it's a bit more, I don't know, sleek, and wow, everyone can see right over the front now. So I think that's a lot better. So I'm going to see, even with the old mechanism, if that makes a big difference. So you'll be able to sort of watch this. In fact, let me change the angle a bit and you'll be able to see a bit more of it. So I'm just going to set that going and see if that makes much of a difference. So up and, oh no, he's nearly there though that time. Oh, very close. So he's closer each time on this. So I think that's definitely helped with the balance. But I am giving it a small shove each time when he comes around. But definitely, I think that lower profile head, if I stop it, does look a lot better. And I managed to find that in amongst all of my sort of sea pieces that I've been collecting for my under the sea setting. Now, before I get too attached to this new setup, which I like very much, I did think I'd experiment with something else, and that was basically making each of these carriages 2 seats wide. And I've seen a number of pictures on the internet where people have used this sort of interesting buggy interior type piece, which I sent one on Brickall 100 in this tan colour, which probably wouldn't be right. But I've also got this one in this medium azure, or no, this is dark azure, isn't it? Colour, which came as part of the buggy from the Hidden Side Shrimp Shack Attack set. So you can see I've just removed that briefly so we can play around with it. And basically these can make each of the cars 2-seated. And I thought it might be worth having a go at that and seeing if I wanted to buy, well, it'd probably be this colour rather than this colour, a few more of these, and then I could have 6 people riding it. We could still probably use this head on the front of it, and we'd just have to do a different build, maybe with a bigger mouth or something like that. So I think what I'm going to do next is take off a lot of this stuff and put on a couple of these. I won't have 3, of course, only 2, but I think it will be good enough for proof of concept. But what I'm also going to have to do is basically remove a lot of the fortress, because it's got some 6-wide arches and I don't think it's going to fit through. I mean, it'll just fit in that gap, but basically when it starts going around the corner, it's not going to fit at all. So I'm going to temporarily rip off most of this bit of the building and the bit sort of behind here, so it will go all the way around, and then at least we'll know whether we want to continue with this kind of modification. Well, here is my very rough and ready improved double width car, and I'm not sure I really like it actually. It looks a bit clunky. I'm sure, you know, if you put a lot of effort into making it a bit more decorated and all the rest of it, it would look good, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Now, to have this working, I've had to remove the sort of water splash, which it would hit, and as I said, all of the buildings. I've just pulled them off very crudely for now, so we can give this a quick go and see if it looks good. So you can see it sort of going around. I'm still going to have to give it a little shove until we prove that mechanism. But yeah, I mean, it works. It's all right. I think for the right roller coaster ride, this would look really good, but I can't say I'm sold on it. Yeah, I was also thinking of doing this technique on the big roller coaster, the 10261, the red one, but basically there's too much of that sort of setting as well, like the equivalent of these buildings, you know, where it's all got the gates for them to get on and all the rest of it, that would be completely in the wrong place if you added these wider pieces. So I'm kind of loath to be messing with that as well. And in fact, that one's even worse because it's got those tyre wheels at the very top that would spin against what is the normal edge of these, and I bet it doesn't work with these different edges on as well. So great idea, maybe for a ride of the future, but I think for this one and for the red one, I think it's a no to double-seated cars. Now, occasionally, this actually has a bit of a catastrophe. Either the car going along the track hits some sort of bump, or maybe doesn't quite catch properly on one of the chain link pieces, and it all goes awry. And that would be bad enough, but then basically the motor's still spinning, it's got nowhere to go, and basically the whole thing kind of catastrophically fails, bits of chain everywhere, all the rest of it. And I do want to improve on that mechanism as well, just because, well, I'm going to have loads of things powered by shared battery boxes, and I can't have things when they fail taking out the whole fairground and taking ages to repair all the time. So I need a better solution. And one thing that I think will improve things is a clutch gear. And basically, if I use this to drive this lower part of the chain, it has an added sort of safety benefit in that if it can't turn, it kind of just turns safely on its own axis on the inside without turning the wider mechanism. And this is used by Lego in some of their bigger sets. I think it's definitely in the carousel. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in some of the other ones as well. And it just means that the motor can continue harmlessly turning when there is a blockage, effectively. Now, this is a different size to the one I've currently got in there. So basically, if I'm going to use this, I can't have it on this position and at this height because it is so close to the track already. So I'm going to have to experiment with different positions for this, both sort of left and right, and then higher and lower as well, because just changing all of this sort of by one plate really does make a world of difference when it's going around and to its noise and reliability. So I'm going to play around with this. On the bottom here, I think the top bit's fine. That uses a similar one of these sort of medium gears, but that's fine so far. So yeah, I'm going to play around with this and see how much better I can make it by including this. Right, well, there has been much designing, building, gnashing of teeth and tea drunk in designing what probably looks like virtually the exact same mechanism, but it does have that clutch gear in there, so that's one definite improvement already. And it was very important to me that this set fit in, just because it was the first one that kind of started off all of this nonsense with fairground rides all being motorised. It's sort of a rod for my own back because I can't say I really enjoy doing all this complicated technic stuff, but I do like the outcome. So yeah, I have to get through it really. And if I didn't include this whole roller coaster, then basically I'll probably have to include one of the two sort of alternate builds, because it was kind of a 3-in-1 creator set with a to and fro coaster that sort of went sort of one side to the other side, and one that went sort of round and round, and they were both a bit boring and a bit similar to other rides I've already got. So yeah, I really wanted to include this in the fairground, although I may have trouble with it being fitted perfectly, but because I had ideas in my head of it looking a bit like Roller Coaster Tycoon, if you ever played that computer game, a big long time ago now, I imagine probably in the 90s, or Theme Park, that was another one, where they had basically loads of roller coasters all sort of tangled together, really sort of crammed in, and that was kind of the look I was thinking I might be able to achieve with this and the red roller coaster. So yeah, here's hoping. Anyway, what have I done? I have basically moved this not only to include the clutch gear, but I've kind of moved it every half Technic stud, because you can have a normal Technic hole in a Technic brick, and then the one in the middle when you use one of these different types of one. So basically every half stud I've kind of tried this axle in to get the best possible position, left to right, and then vertically I've tried pretty much every single plate height as well, just so it's incredibly close to the track itself without hitting it, very close to this, so it's got a good sort of pickup point, and it's really crammed into that corner, because the closer it gets the better it is at picking up the carriages. So that's what I've done there. Ignore the fact that it looks quite ugly at the moment. I've just used random coloured bricks that were conveniently to hand. Ignore the fact that the motor's visible and all the rest of it. And ignore the fact that there is actually one black chain link in all the brown ones. Basically, by moving this whole mechanism a little bit to the left and with a bigger gear inside it, I didn't have enough chain pieces, so I've had to steal one from one of my other rides. In fact, it was the Venus Flydrop, so I'll have to get another one, buy another one, preferably brown, to replace this one, so I can return this to that ride, because it won't work as it stands. But essentially, now I think we've got a much better pickup angle, and I don't know if it's just more efficient or just, I don't know why it's so markedly different from the one we had before, that idea that we copied, because now if we try it, we'll see that I really don't have to do anything now, and it's not even that close to sort of petering out on the flat bit, and I really haven't changed anything else on the entire ride. And you may have noticed that it was sort of getting stuck then. It does that sort of 1 in 100 sort of tours, and it did on the old mechanism as well, just where the sort of small pickup points on the bottom of the carriages basically don't connect well, or there's an odd difference in individual chain links. But normally that would cause a derailment. But with the clutch gear, especially if it happens again, watch here, you'll see that it stays still for a little bit while the mayhem's going on, and then when it sort of frees itself, it will continue as normal. So I think that's going to prevent a lot of disasters. But as you can see, I'm definitely not pushing it. Look, Mum, no hands. And that is making it really reliable as well. Oh, did you see that? That's the closest it's come to not getting over. But all the rest of them, it's doing it with flying ease. So I think that single-handedly has made this a much more reliable ride, both for not petering out and for potential derailments. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. Now we can get on to making the rest of it kind of fit and look good. Now, although this isn't exactly a how-to video, I did think that I would show you each of the 3 segments of this mechanism a bit more up close, because I know a lot of you like to duplicate the rides I do and have a go yourself, and you might even want to get this set now you've seen it motorised. So this section at the bottom, I've got looking pretty ugly, but you can tidy that up yourselves, with 2 plates at the bottom before this 4x8. It's then got another plate, a brick, and then some Technic bricks, and you'll see that the axle is on the second stud, basically, on one of those. And then this and this are just for strength. Then we've got the clutch gear in the middle, and it's been spaced into the middle by having one of these sort of half-width bearings on either side. And then the motor is attached to the equivalent set of Technic bricks on that side. So very simple there. Then instead of some of these dark azure sort of 2x2 round bricks, we've got this little setup here, which is just medium azure because I had the pieces. And it's just basically a curved slope inside a box, just so this doesn't get caught on anything when it returns. As you'll see, there's a curved slope there, plate, brick, and the whole thing's 3 bricks high. So that is that. And then this one's probably the most complicated in a way, in that it's mounted bricks on the side onto a bracket piece, one of those ones that's got the sort of 4x2 bracket bit, and that the 1x2 tab is built into the entire column, and then the 2x4 bit has got this entire sort of thing built out from it. And we've got, 2 plates, 1x2s, and then one of the Technic 1x2 bricks with the 2 holes in, then another 1x2 plate, and then these 1x4 curved slopes to link up the 2 sides. And then we've got one of those medium-sized gears in there. And that is all incredibly close as well. And then you're going to probably ask me how many of these links I've got, and I don't know. I haven't counted them. I'm not sure I'm going to either. But yeah, it should be sort of fairly loose. You can see that it's definitely not tight. So hopefully that will give you an idea of how many you need. And then it should whir along like that very well. So then on the front of this, I've just done that wedge piece with the pattern on from set 7771, and then a few plates and slopes and all the rest, but you can pretty much do your own for that, and then you'll be going fine. And you can see that this skull bit has just been heightened. I've just used some longer plates and added some more sort of slope bricks of different types along the sides. Now, another part of the original set was this kind of water dunking bit where the carriage would come through, hit this little tab in the middle of the tracks, and kind of cause these water splashes to bounce up, and then it would reset for the next tour. Well, I say that, it wouldn't really reset for the next tour at all, but because you were pushing the whole thing around, I guess you would do it manually, sort of by pulling on this lever here, and it was very sort of clunky indeed. But because of the extra speed I've managed to get through reliably into the ride, I can remove this whole sort of handle piece, and the water splash will get triggered every time it goes round and then sort of fall back into its off position. So you'll have to sort of focus on it quite a bit because it just appears for a flashing second. But if I put the ride on, you'll see that it kind of bounces up and then bounces up and bounces up, and acts as the splash when it goes through that sort of puddle every time. Now that is really good because I've never had this or seen this powered by any normal mechanism where it's had not only enough energy to get all the way around to the bottom of the lift again, but also had enough to run through this and hit it, because obviously this is a bit of a obstacle. So I'm really happy that that has worked with mine. I didn't think it was going to at all. So I'm just going to leave that loose and therefore it will continue to work. Now another quick amendment that I'm going to do to improve this is with the cannon. You get one cannon with this set, and it kind of comes with these wheels, and I think it looks quite fun. It sort of encourages you to fill it with water pieces, and you can sort of fire them, doing the pullback thing and firing them at the people in the carriages, but that seems a bit harsh to me. But anyway, but I thought, what's better than one cannon on wheels on the outside as a bit of decor? Well, lots of cannon really. So if I just wheel up here, I'm going to show you that I'm going to add 3 more cannon. I'm going to add one to where I just took one off here. I haven't added wheels to any of these, it's just for decor. I'm going to add another one up here because they put in these sort of grey pieces, which I think were to show you where the cannon could be fixed onto as an alternative, but I'm going to have all alternatives kind of populated all at the same time. So we can have one up, where is it, up here as well. Let me get that one right. Like, is that like it? Yeah, something like that. Anyway, I can fine tune that, or you can't even see what I was just doing then. It's up here on the top turret. So basically I've got absolutely loads of cannon pointing in all directions for the defense of the fortress. So that's a nice little twist as well. And I've still got the original one with its wheels on for decor around the bottom of the steps. Cool. Now this ride is surrounded by loads of lovely scenery, like this skeleton on a pile of treasure, plant life, fish, rocks, and all the rest of it. And it's definitely something that I plan to add to. If only I had some sort of sea life pieces and all that sort of thing. If only I'd been collecting those for a while. But I'm not going to do that today, and that may surprise you, but basically I'd end up having to do it twice, because what I'm going to do is actually mount all of this sort of columns and the rest of it directly onto the bright green plates that make up my Fairground sort of ground level. And that will mean that I can remove all of these sort of tan bricks, tan plates, and these light bluish grey plates to sort of leave gaps where there are this kind of hurdle for minifigures as it currently stands. And that will mean that the whole area is opened up a lot more. It will mean maybe I can even have the water splash actually in a lower water area, which would be really interesting as well. But that does mean I'll have to probably lower the entire set by about a brick or two, which will mean changing all of the building parts to make them lower down as well. So that might be a rod for my back. But anyway, but it will make it very open, as I say. And that means that I might even be able to have a second ride in the middle of this. Because much like I was saying about, you know, the computer games, Roller Coaster Tycoon and Theme Park and so on, it was very sort of crammed together, and I am a fan of density as well. So having sort of one of my smaller rides, like say the Venus Flydrop that we mentioned earlier, working in the middle of this ride would surely be a really interesting thing. That might be good if it was sort of similarly themed. So as part of that, I will definitely be encasing my motor, which will be above ground. Its cable will then immediately go below ground, and it can link up with all the rest of things. And the way that I'm going to be hiding that, I think, is just using some burps or big ugly rock pieces. And I think if I use a pair of those kind of like this, then basically I can have the motor kind of sticking out, or maybe even have it even more hidden with just the axle coming out of a little crack in the rocks. I think that will look really good. And that will be very much in keeping with the rest of the ride. So we'll just basically have a kind of rock over here, and I can add to that even more if I want by adding some really large sea life. And one thing that I got given to me by a friend of the channel was this wonderfully huge shark, which is from the set 31088 Deep Sea Creatures, which is another 3-in-1 creator set. This one can be made into an anglerfish, another one, or big squid as well, but I just think this one is absolutely fantastic, and you can open its mouth and so on and make it look really menacing. So it might be in due course that I have this kind of mounted on that rock that's housing the motor, maybe at an angle like that, and the ride goes underneath its tail, or maybe even I have it the other way, and it's sort of cruising right around its mouth. I don't really know, but I think that would take up a lot of the space in the middle here, which could be used by another ride. So maybe I'll be able to do both, but you see, it's going to be very difficult to me to decide here on the building desk when basically it'll all be different when I've got everything up in the Lego room. So I'm really glad that I've made the motorization element work today. I'm really glad that it really ties in with the water feature as well here, but I think when it comes to actually finishing this off, I'm going to have to kind of leave it to a part 2. But suffice to say, it's been really good to get this thing pieced back together. This is the ride that caused the entire fairground to kind of need to come into existence in the first place. So yeah, I'm really glad that it's come back to be a fully fledged member of the gang. Well, believe it or not, that's been an incredibly long session actually, not just piecing together this old set, but also changing all the mechanism so it's much more efficient. It gets round absolutely flawlessly every time now, and I'm firmly confident that it is reliable. I think using that new clutch gear on the bottom there has made all the difference. And it's so powerful now that we've got the water splash working every single time as well. So as well as all the extra cannon, I think this set is looking absolutely amazing now and ready for inclusion in the fairground. The only question really is how much of this scenery I can remove when I incorporate it, whether I can get this kind of sunk down into a decent watery bit. I could even have a lot of it over some water, and whether I should include this rather large shark in the setup, either centrally like that or maybe tucked up over the motor. But whatever I do, I think it will look absolutely amazing as part of my fairground. Really dense, densely packed with the other one, I'm hoping. And you never know, I might get another ride in the middle. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. It is appreciated. Do remember to like, comment and subscribe for more awesome LEGO videos. And if you value this channel, there are many ways in which you can support it. Do check out the links in the description below. And next time a Robin Hood Bricks will be going back to the building desk here for another build on Monday. Haven't decided what. Maybe the Daily Bugle. I'm thinking it'd be good to get that done as well. But whatever we get up to, I'm sure we'll have great fun. So see you then. That was interesting, wasn't it?